We'll take you back to the last court sitting. We will remind you of the issues outstanding, particularly what John Dramani Mahama is seeking. But let me introduce to you our lawyers who will help us break the issues down this morning. Mr. Martin Pebble, a very good morning to you. Thank you very much for making time again today. Hello, Mr. Pebble. Okay, and Justice Abdullah is also a lawyer. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much again for joining me. So, gentlemen, if you can both hear me, can I hear you say hello? Okay. Hello, Mr. Pebble.
I can hear you.
I can hear you now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay. Great. I hope you're well.
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
Lawyers have not necessarily talked about COVID-19. I hope that is not affecting your work in the courts.
It does, to the extent that a lot of the time we are some of us are in panic mood because, each time you hear the statistics, then the thought is, hey, listen, I hope it doesn't spread to get to me, So it kind of gives us anxiety, Yes.
Yeah.
So to that extent, psychologically, we are affected, even though physically we've not been infected.
Well, I know we will be fine if we continue to abide by the protocols, but the grace of God is also sufficient. So most importantly. But thank you so much for making time to be with us. Let's see if Justice Abdullah can hear me now. Can you hear me, sir? Okay, not quite. So let me stay with you, Mr. Martin Pebble. And I want to go back to the last court sitting. What surprised you most about that? I was so unexpected they went on recess. I mean, just minutes into the hearing, and it was so surprising. And I think what I used to describe the panel was that they were quite upset because they felt that John Dramani Mahama's legal team had not respected their orders and they had not filed their witness statement. So just going back into the last court sitting, maybe you can give a summary of your thoughts of what happened.
Yeah, so when it comes to the apparent anger, it's possible it was contrived, okay? So the justices would have made it up just to send a stern warning, to the Mr. Mahama's team that they are not happy about what had happened. So for me, I wouldn't take it as anger proper. Day in, day out, it happens in the courtrooms. Sometimes, lawyers are overwhelmed, so we don't go by the court orders. And the judge who is seized with the case has a lot of other cases. And so sometimes there are ways of sending a signal that, look, I won't countenance this next time round. So I think we shouldn't make too much of it. But maybe substantively, look, what happened that day, I'll tell you that I have also learned something very substantial from the proceedings that day. You see, the reason for which Mr. Mahama's team didn't file the witness statement, that is to say, because they had filed a stay of proceedings. A lot of us understood the law as giving them the right not to file if they had filed a stay of proceedings. But look, trust me, later on, through researches, it turned out that the Supreme Court has another decision that's not so popular yet, but it's still a decision of the Supreme Court where they made it clear that if you file an application for stay of proceedings, it doesn't mean the court has already granted you your wishes. So if there is anything to be done in the interim, you do it whilst you wait for the court to decide your application. That is to say, whether the court will grant your stay or not. So what I'm saying is that, so it's possible that maybe the team didn't see that decision. Because since I saw that decision myself, I ate humble pie. Okay. Because earlier, we were very confident that, look, this is one principle which is very clear on the face of the law, which is that if you file the stay of proceedings, don't do any other thing that will undermine your application. So in the case of Mr. Mahama, because they filed the stay of proceedings, they shouldn't file the witness statement. But it has turned out that there's another Supreme Court decision. It's called Republic versus High Court, Commercial Division, Tamale, ex parte Kalim, where Justice Benin JSC, speaking for the court, stated that if you file an application for stay of proceedings, it doesn't mean your wishes have been granted. So you can stop or you can refuse to do what the court had asked you to do, or you can refuse to participate any further. No, it doesn't mean so. It says go on, but then the court will decide in due course. So
yeah, but Mr. Pebo, this is a high court case that you're citing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a Supreme Court case, but they were talking about the High Court, but it's the same principle.
Okay. So
let me repeat. When you hear the title, the Republic versus High Court, Commercial Division, Tamale, ex parte Kalim, okay? So it was in the High Court that the judge had made some orders, and then somebody applied for stay of proceedings and other things, and wasn't taking part, blah, blah, blah. So when you hear the ex parte so and so, usually
okay, so just a brief moment there, but I can assure you we'll have Mr. Martin Pebo back to finish this. But I see you, Justice Abdullahi. There you are. Good morning.
Good morning, Mama V.
Okay, great.
I believe you're doing well.
Yes, I am. And yourself?
I am still battling a cold.
Okay. Well, I'll come to you.
Malaria fever.
Oh, well, my apologies. Mr. Pebo, we lost you because the feed had frozen just a little bit, but I'll give you the opportunity so you can end. You are still explaining this case to us.
Yes. Okay, so I'm saying the fifth of the case is that if you file an application for stay of proceedings, it doesn't mean automatically your stay has been granted from the moment you filed it. That used to be the dominant thought at the bar. You see, lawyers, as we practice day in, day out, it used to be accepted that as soon as you file your stay of proceedings, don't do anything. That will show that then you yourself, you don't even have faith in what you have put before the court. So as soon as you file your stay, you would stop obeying court orders. It's not like you've stopped aside, but for fear that if you continue obeying the very thing you are protesting against, then it will mean that this is self-defeat. You don't even have faith in what you file. So you are protesting, and at the same time you are that was seen as a sign of inconsistency. The practice was that if you file your stay of proceedings, don't obey. I mean, so to speak, for lack of a better way. It looks at the word obey is too strong. Maybe don't adhere to the orders you are supposed to adhere to.
Okay.
But saying that there is a certain decision which says, hey, that old practice, it's not the law. That if you have the stay of proceedings, please proceed as if you haven't even filed it. Go on and do what the judge is asking you to do until the application that you have put before the court, either before the same High Court or if it is the Supreme Court, until the court has heard your application for stay of proceedings.
Yeah.
So I should think that is why that the justices said, no. Mr. Mohammed's team should go back and file the document. And I'm saying that me, also talking to you, it's not that I've learned the principle. So it's humbling. So you see why we keep saying that we are always learning. We have so many rules. So if you're not careful, at one point, the decisions are so many, they don't get reported in the form of law reports that we buy on the very day the Supreme Court makes a decision. So let's say the court gives a decision today. Sometimes it may take a year before the decisions are put into proper law reports. You see, so that causes some pieces that you slip here and there.
Okay.
So the main point is that for the court to have told Mr. Mahame's lawyers that no, go back and file the documents, it's based, at least I should think, on this decision that they had previously given.
Great. Great. Okay, Mr. Pebble, well, thank you. It's good to know that even lawyers, very experienced lawyers, are still learning something new from the processes in court with the election petition. Justice, we spoke on that day. In fact, you were with me before the hearing started and indeed when they went on recess. And you had taken me through the punishment, the regime, what could happen to them once, and then of course the panel came back and also referred to, some say it was a threat. They could have the entire case dismissed, there could be costs, or they could have some of the processes being set aside. What do you make of the final outcome? The Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's legal team has described it as lenient, so the court was very lenient to Mr. John Dramani Mahama.
Indeed, Mama, you are right. That day we predicted all the possible outcomes and we laid them out clearly. And the Supreme Court came out confirming almost everything that we had discussed on your station and adopted one of it. And indeed gave the threat of a possible striking out of the suit should they fail to abide by the orders of the Supreme Court by filing the appropriate processes that they had been ordered to file. I wouldn't say that the Supreme Court was too lenient, considering the fact that this is novel, first of all. It's the first in this time that we are confronted with this kind of challenge. And then also the decision not to file was also on the basis of a pending application which sought to stay proceedings. And taking it from that angle as well, I would say that it's not as though the John Mahama team was too wrong in relying on that principle of law by avoiding a self-defeating approach by going ahead to file their witness statement, among other things. Perhaps if they say they were too lenient, maybe it's because costs were not awarded in their favor, as in the Nana legal team, or maybe there's 10 punishment that they sought or felt ought to have been applied, didn't apply. But I think all in all, the Supreme Court did a balancing act by giving them a first chance, because this was the first time this had happened to them. And so I think it was fair that they had given them the opportunity by extending time for them. And they had also made their indignation quite known. Clearly, they didn't mince words by making them aware that they would apply the appropriate sanctions should they fail to comply with the orders of the court. I think that sent quite a good signal as to what the Supreme Court will be doing should they fail for the second time to do what they ought to do. For me, I think it's a balancing act, and the Supreme Court did the most appropriate thing. I'm sure a word to the wise, as we say, is always in the north. And so clearly, taking it from that angle, all of us moving forward will take the Supreme Court more serious on such matters, and then we will do what we are supposed to do in accordance with law and practice. I do not think the Supreme Court was lenient at all. I think they were fair and balanced in the decision that they made. Indeed, if you heard the ruling, it was quite stern. I'm sure if that kind of words had been used on you, you'd be more scared than maybe a cost being awarded against you or so, because the threat was that scary for me, and that is enough.
Okay. Well, Mr. Pebble, I want us to go through the schedule, and I want you to help us with your own understanding of the schedule that we're following to get to the conclusion of this petition. What's your understanding of it, and where are we? Mr. Pebble, if you can kindly unmute so we can hear you.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, great.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Yes. Well, yes. On the schedule, there appears now to be some confusion, but for me, I don't subscribe to it. So let's make the first point first. The last part of the schedule says judgment on the 42nd day.
Yes.
Judgment on the 42nd day. That is very clear. But at the end of the 42nd day too, then there is the word March. So March, the month of March. So this is what is beginning to create a confusion that, oh, judgment should be in March. But you see, when we are interpreting statutes, sometimes you see some apparent confusions. But if what is written makes clear sense to an extent, you go with that clear sense. So, Mahavi, the reason I don't subscribe to the trial stretching to March is that, come back to the beginning. The CI 99 states very clearly that, one, when the petition is filed and it's not the respondent has 10 days to file an answer. Now, you see, when the respondents were filing their answer, they filed within 10 ordinary days. Yes, just 10 normal days. But right now, the argument on the other side, those who are saying you should stretch to March, they're saying that we should count only the days the Supreme Court sits on the matter. And what we're saying is that, those of us who don't subscribe to it, what we're saying is that if the lawmaker wanted the 42 days to be counted as only on days on which the Supreme Court sits on the matter, they would have just made it very clear. So let me give you an example where the lawmaker makes such a thing clear. In Article 11 of the Constitution, you see that when you lay a CI before Parliament, in order for the CI to become law, the Constitution states clearly that there should have been 21 sitting days. 21 sitting days. So now, do we have time to refer to the Constitution?
Yes, we do. In fact, we also are helping our viewers with the schedule as contained in the CI 99. So we have that also on the screen. So you can go ahead and make your reference so people can also look at the timelines.
Okay, yes. Now, so Article 11, Clause 7 says, any order, rule, or regulation made by a person or authority under a power conferred by this Constitution or any other law shall, then let's come to C, come into force at the expiration of 21 sitting days after being so laid, unless Parliament, blah, blah, blah. My emphasis is on, you had 21 sitting days. Word sitting days. So what I'm saying is that in Ghana, we already know how to write sitting days anytime we want to write it. And this is not the first time. So since we know how to write sitting days, when the lawmaker goes to sit and he doesn't use sitting days, we should be very slow in saying that he intended to write sitting days. The word sitting days is already common in our, let me call it vocabulary. Let's reduce the terms. So in writing our laws, it's within our vocabulary. We know it. So if in the Constitution we've used the word sitting days when we wanted to use it, why is it that in CI 99, if we wanted to say the Supreme Court, we should count 42 days using only sitting days? Why didn't they write it?
Okay. So you disagree? You disagree that judgment would be in March, or should be in March?
Perfect.
Okay, so is it 30 days today with your countdown?
Yes. Today is 28. 29.
Yes. 29 days.
The reason we say 29 is that the days started counting from the day the president was served and the EC2 was served. And that was on the 31st. So we got 1 day from December. If we add to today, 28th, we get 29 days. So it means that we should be left with what? Is that 13 days to go?
Okay. All right. I'll come to...
One last...
I'll come to... Okay, yeah, please go ahead. Let's hear you finish off.
Yeah, very briefly. So it left with 11 days. My thinking of the matter is that if we can finish the trial within the 11 days, I put it to you, the witnesses mounting the box. If we can finish within the 11 days, that would be good. Then the justices will adjourn for judgment. There's already a Supreme Court decision, okay, from about 2001, ex parte PPE, that if the law says bring a judgment within a certain time, and you are not able to bring it within that time, but outside, it doesn't make the judgment void. So if we can finish within the next 11 days, and then the justices rise to go and bring their judgment outside the 42 days, it's legal. We already have laws covering that, so it's not a problem.
Okay. All right. Let me before I come to you, Mr. Abdullahi, for your own understanding of the schedule and where you think we are, whether or not you agree with Mr. Martin Pebo, let me go to the courts, because our court correspondent Joseph Akablay is there already for us. Joseph, if you can hear me, I see that you're showing me pictures of the Supreme Court. Are you able to tell us who has arrived for today's hearing?
So, Mama V, I got here about 10 minutes ago, and so far I've spotted Edijita Maklo. He's a member of Mr. Mahama's legal team, together with Sami Jemfi, the National Communications Officer of the NDC. Those are the two individuals that I've spotted. They're already here at the premises of the Supreme Court. And so, as you can see, this is the main entrance for now. This is where you come in. And so you have someone who takes your temperature. There are the Veronica buckets, two of them at the entrance where you wash your hand before you go in, and there are two policemen there. There are some other policemen also here on the premises who are working to take their post in different parts of the Supreme Court premises. And so this is the situation here as we speak. And in some few minutes, we'll be expecting the other individuals who are all connected to this case to come here to the Supreme Court. And so this is the situation here at the Supreme Court, Mavi.
Okay, great. Akablay, you were in courts when the court adjourned sitting the last time. Did they say what we should expect today? Because there's the pending issue of the review. There's also amendment to that review.
In fact, the specific point the court made in reading its directive was to say that the case is adjourned to the 28th of January. But before then, we know that it had made the point that there are a number of outstanding issues, and said that because the lawyers for the petitioners had failed to abide or comply with the court's directive, the court was not going to do any business in relation to those issues till they are dealt with. First, we know that the interrogatory review ruling is still pending. There's a request that the court reviews that decision, and that is originally slated for today. The second issue is that there is a request by Mr. Mahama's legal team asking that they are allowed to file additional documents to support that review, and also to change a paragraph in the review. And so that is also another issue that is equally outstanding. There is the bit about asking the EC chairperson to admit to certain facts, which is also another issue that has also not been dealt with. And so those are the matters that are outstanding for now. And once the court comes in, we understand that it appears one of the issues it may urgently deal with is the request that Mr. Mahama's team is allowed to file additional documents in relation to the review, because today is originally for the review, and we understand that that may be the first issue they deal with, then the review is dealt with. Then afterwards, if the court is minded to allow for the petition hearing to take off, then it will take off. And since the court gave its directive the last time, the directives have been complied with, the two witness statements have been filed, and also the legal arguments in response to the initial objection has also been filed as well.
Okay. Akablay, if you may, maybe just stay with me just a little longer if you can, whatever the time would allow us, so that you can update us in terms of who has arrived. But let me come to you, Justice Abdullahi, on the schedule as we have. Where do you think we are? Do you agree with Martin Pebo?
Not entirely. I do admit that we've exhausted the time. Well, not everything, but we've spent quite a number of time doing other things other than the main things that we should be doing. Indeed, if you do count, we are in the second week of when hearing ought to have started. But I would like to take the time quite liberally from the point of view of when events actually start. So when the rule says that on the 10th day, pre-trial ought to start, and then on the 15th day, a hearing ought to start. Yeah, I would like to interpret it liberally by saying that once the 15th day actually would start from the day that the pre-trial was done. So assuming pre-trial, in this case, pre-trial was done somewhere last week, and hearing ought to have started as per the rules on Tuesday. On Tuesday. So if you take it from that liberal ground, then it means that we've really lost just about 3 days or 2 days, really, from when the pre-trial was okay. Because and I take this view because until the event that ought to happen happens, it's difficult to count time in this regard. But if you go by the other side, that's the January and then the March and the 42-day and the first day each argument, the view that I take is that the worst case scenario is that by March, judgment ought to have been delivered. And this also takes into consideration my argument that the day actually starts counting from the day that the event that ought to have happened on that day happens. So if on the 10th day, pre-trial ought to have happened, and it didn't happen, and but it rather happened on the 15th day, then it is only from the 15th day that you start counting the day of hearing.
Okay.
So it means that the 20th day would rather be the day of hearing rather than the 15th day when you actually did the pre-trial. I don't know whether you are getting
very interesting
angle.
Perspective, but they say lawyers don't agree, right? So you have different perspectives. So this is a different angle to it, and I certainly appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Yeah. I want to move on and talk about the review. Martin Pebo, if you can hear me and if you're still with us. Should we expect a reconstitution of that panel? Because we know for a review there will have to be additional judges added to the original panel.
Yeah, so this one, what do you call it? It's difficult to say so. You see, the ordinary review usually happens when the Supreme Court has made the decision. That's the end of it, okay? So when we say end of it, meaning that it comes to an end. What do you call it? Under the rules, you go to the Supreme Court, ordinary bench, 5 people, 5 justices, they give a decision. Then after, if you ask for a review, then they add. Or if it's a constitutional matter, you ask for a review, then they add. But this one, it is an interlocutory matter. When I say interlocutory, it means that it happened while the Supreme Court has not yet finished hearing the case. Let's repeat. So this one is different. So because the Supreme Court has been using different approaches, this time I won't stick my neck out. I'll wait. But the distinction is that there's that distinction. This time, the Supreme Court is dealing with the matter. They've not yet finished. It's not final judgment that we went or we are going for a review. So the review we are used to, often it arises in the context that the Supreme Court itself, let's say you took an appeal there, 5 justices heard it and they finished. Then you want a review, then they will add 2 to get 7. Or if it's a constitutional matter that they used 7 justices, and then the litigant lost, he wants a review, then they will add 2 to get 9, right? But I'm saying that this particular one, it's a case in which the case is still ongoing. So because it's still ongoing, I'll not stick out my neck to say they would bring another 2 to hear, then after that, that other 2 would go. No.
Okay.
So let's say in the High Court, when the case is still ongoing, and you ask the judge to review, they don't add judges, you see. So because of that, I just not stick out my neck and say, but
Okay.
they will add the 2. It's within their bosom. They can add if they so wish, but if they don't do, then my understanding of it is that because the case is still ongoing, that's the difference between this kind of review and the other review we are used to.
All right.
That's the difference.
Okay, well, very interesting. Justice Abdullahi, should we expect the court will now rise to be reconstituted?
Not likely at all. We are likely to have the same panel making all the decisions and then move forward with the trial of the matter. We are not likely to have any drama today. I do not foresee any drama happening today. I do rather expect a quick decision to be taken, considering that the Supreme Court is bent on commencing the trial. And so I do expect a lot of quick decisions. Unfortunately, because of the multiplicity of applications, I do not foresee that possibility of the applications being moved that swiftly to enable them make a decision as quick as we'd expect it. Today, I expect that we have a very long day today due to the pendency of the multiplicity of applications. But beyond that, I think everything should be smooth and organized and nothing surprising really happening.
Can we have the substantive matter being dealt with at least started today?
Most likely not. Despite the insistence and the body language of the Supreme Court, I do not foresee trial commencing today. The likeliest day we may probably have our trial maybe next week, because most likely they may not be sitting tomorrow, unless they have to adjourn some of the applications to tomorrow. Then you can be guaranteed that they would want to start the trial next week. But outside of that, the applications are too many. And listening to the applicants, you can clearly see that they take their time to make to move their application. They really take their time to move the application. They do not take anything for granted. They go almost word by word on every single thing that they file. And that is likely to be repeated today. And should that be repeated, give and take, between 2 and 3 p.m., we should still be in court. Okay.
Well, that will be a familiar sight. Martin Pebu, is that your gut's feeling too?
No. This time round, you see, the applications, it doesn't look like going forward, the court can give hours and hours for... No. The rules allow the justices to even read what has been submitted and render their judgment, give an opinion. But of course, because the stakes are very high, they would definitely give the lawyers some time to speak. But going forward, it doesn't look like 1 hour for each lawyer is going to be the norm for the applications. Definitely, the time will have to come down because we are behind schedule. Well, as I said, because of the way I read the schedule, that's the timeline, the 42 days, it doesn't look like the lawyers can be allowed to give very long arguments.
Okay. All right.
Let's make one point. Because as part of the review, usually you would argue your law. So it means that the justices have already seen the arguments on paper. They can also read. But of course, it's always good to allow the lawyer some time to breathe some life into the lifeless words on paper. But the key thing is that the justices have seen the arguments already, because as part of the review, you would present the arguments. So they've read. So they say, okay, yes, you may take some time, lawyer, attorney later, to make your point. Maybe the essential ones you want to emphasize for our consideration, but not the word for word as Justice Abdullah was saying, the very slow, long one, not that one. It doesn't appear there's time for that anymore. Okay.
All right, great. Let me go to Joseph Akable. Joseph, we're still seeing the videos, your videos, where you're showing us the Supreme Court. As we've been talking, who has come in?
And so earlier I had mentioned that Maklo had shown, just walked into the courtroom while you're conducting your interview with the private legal practitioners. Mr. Julius Debra, the former chief of staff, also walked in during that interview as well. Then Mokhtari, who we know works in the office of the former president, also walked in just a short while ago. So far, I've not spotted anyone on the side of the respondents in terms of either the Electoral Commission chairperson or the president's legal team. But with regards to the petitioners, those are the individuals who are either closely related or working closely with them who have come to the Supreme Court.
All right, great. Let me get into the final matters when Martin Pebu and Justice Abdullah, and hopefully we can get a final report from Akable before he takes his seats in the courtroom. Mr. Pebu, a lot of us are waking up to the news that John Dramani Mahama's legal team has filed their witness statement. We're hearing Kpessa Whyte and Johnson Asiedu Nketia. What does that mean?
Wow. Well, the first point is that in these battles, you have to be careful in order not to read too much into things that you see with your eyes. You have to wait for them to unfold. Now, the second point is this. You see that when they filed the case, they indicated that we're going to call 5 witnesses. And I think this morning I heard Baba Jamal on another station saying that they had reduced the number because time is fast spent. So you see that even within their camp, they are sensitive to the fact that it's an issue of time constraint. So if I can go with what Baba Jamal stated, then it means that they are doing it in order to expedite the trial. At least that's what he said. And he's a senior member of the NDC. So for him to have said so, what it means is that reducing it from 5 to 2 means that they want to help the court to come to an expeditious hearing, or to conclude expeditiously.
Okay, so this is I put it to you the way you put it sometimes to us. This is where they will matter, right?
Exactly. So it means that Dr. Kpessa Whyte and Asiedu Nketia will be the ones to mount the witness stand or box. Yes, so they will answer the questions. You and I were not there. The pink sheets, yes, they will bring out the pink sheets, the collation sheets, and all that.
Okay.
Yes. If there are PowerPoint presentations, yes, then they will bring them out too.
Okay, great. Justice Abdullah, just your thoughts on this same issue of the witness statement, the fact that there's been a reduction in terms of the witnesses. Is that acceptance of some kind of defeat?
Not entirely. I had said yesterday that really when filing a matter and you are asked to indicate the number of witnesses, it is the normal practice that you'd like any other budget or estimate, you indicate more, just so when the actualities unfold, you will not be caught pants down. Is a better strategy than indicating that you don't want to call 3 witnesses, only for you to discover that you actually would need 10 witnesses, and then you may not have the room to call all those additional witnesses. So if you indicate more, and it turns out that you actually need less, then you are well within your comfort zone. You are not you don't find yourself panting and gasping for air. So I think that is a better strategy going into this battle that the Mahama team adopted by indicating 5 and then rather ended up calling 2. Except to say that I was rather surprised about. I had predicted that Asiedu Nketia was going to be a witness, a better witness, and a star witness for the Mahama team, because he had followed the entire election throughout. I mean, from the beginning till the end, he was almost in almost every constituency, was almost in every court, and then he also has a better experience because he had he was a witness in the 2012 election petition, which was also quite a serious the trial that he went through, and so he had garnered all these experiences and had all this rich experience following the elections and all of that. So for me, his testimony, he being a witness in this matter, for me is quite good for the NDC team. The surprising bit is Kpessa Whyte. Maybe out of my ignorance, I do not, beyond the fact that, of course, he's an NDC and he's a lecturer at Legon and all of that.
He was in the Collation Center, the national one.
Right.
Yes.
Very good, very good. So maybe that puts him in a somewhat better position to tell us what indeed happened within those areas and how he feels those things went against them. Because otherwise, I like I said, if you take the caliber of Asiedu Nketia and maybe people at the national headquarters or maybe people at the John Mahama's office who were probably keenly following the entire event unfolding, because really to be a witness, as the law says, you need to be a person who has either witnessed it by hearing it or by seeing it or by feeling it or by all the senses having collectively having a feel of the event. Right. And much as I didn't know more about Kpessa Whyte, I felt people who have also garnered more experience and had also experienced the event unfold would be the best persons to give testimony. Of course, that is not to say that Kpessa Whyte doesn't have that caliber, but that is to say that I don't know him that well to be able to say that he's the best person to be Asiedu Nketia's call him a running mate as a witness. Okay,
well, I guess time will tell, right? We wait to see.
Absolutely. All right. There's a first time to everything, indeed. Yeah. So maybe he may be able to pull some surprises for all of us, and something good may come out of this for all of us. All right. Gentlemen, I'd like to say thank you. Martin Pebu and Justice Abdullahi, thank you for the pro bono services that you provide, particularly to me on the show. And hopefully we can have a conversation. I have already informed Samson that I'll be sending you a bill. So be expecting it, Mama V. We don't have a contract, do we? Thank you. Martin Pebu, thank you. Keep following this issue. We will talk some more. Oh, I think that feed is frozen on us already. Mr. Pebu, were you saying something? Okay, not quite. No, I was saying that. Okay, all right, great. Joseph Akable, let me end with you. What is happening? Was it Favor I saw in there? So that was Favor Nunu. Okay, great. So all the international journalists are also there, very interested in this 2020 election petition. What is the last update before you get into the courtroom? There hasn't been any development since we last spoke in terms of the arrivals, and so I was just waiting to finish up with you and get inside and get my seat upstairs where I have a good view and a better view than you have in the studio. But obviously, we'll be here to bring our viewers the very latest that transpires here in the court. Absolutely. Joseph Akable, I wish you the very best. Trust that he will not miss anything. He's our court correspondent. He's been following this issue and he will be bringing us some more updates. That's our conversation this morning on the 2020 election petition. Here in the court is set to sit from 9:30 this morning. Stay with us. We've got a Healthy Thursday conversation coming up next. The Ghana Health Service is worried about neglected tropical diseases. We'll get into this matter up next.